I wish I could
You
say
too, Chris.
I was surprised by what the president said tonight, but I'm not. This is just one opportunity where the White House hasn't tried to gloss it over, hasn't tried to say it was a mistake, hasn't tried to say we got it wrong. They're saying the base is okay with this. They'll agree. Do you?
Do I agree? No. I think it is appalling. And I think of two things now, Chris. You know, my father, I'm a first-generation American, and my dad came from what I guess Trump would call a shithole, and that was a very rural and a very, very poor area and a very poor family from Poland. And he came to the United States alone at the age of 17. I cannot believe the courage that that took. And he was able to make a living and raise a family in the United States to become a very proud American. And second of all, what I think of, Chris, today is all over this country, you have decent people who sit down with their kids at the dinner table and they say, judge people based on their character. Don't judge people based on the color of their skin or the country that they came from, whether or not they have an accent or not. Judge them on whether they are good human beings. And we have a president today, the leader of our nation, telling the whole world that that's not what he does. I think the point that you made a moment ago is the right point. It's not just to respond in anger. It's to build a political movement in this country which says that that is not who we are. We will not tolerate that type of moral inadequacy, and we are going to create a very different type of America and get back to the values that help make us a great nation.
Senator, it's one thing to sell that message by preaching to the converted. There are certainly many people in the country who, God willing, will believe that. But what do you say to this so-called Trump base, the people that the White House is banking on agreeing with the president that we don't want those people, they don't belong here? What do you say to them?
This is what I say to them. What I say to them is during his campaign, Trump made a whole lot of promises to you. And on almost every one of the promises that he made to you, when he told you that he would not cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, well, he supported a proposal to cut $1 trillion in Medicaid. When he told you he was going to take on Wall Street, turns out that he appointed major Wall Street executives to top administrative positions. When he told you he was going to take on the drug companies, turns out he lied to you about that one as well and appointed executives from some of the largest pharmaceutical companies to run major government agencies. He told you he was going to be on the side of the working class of this country, and that was a lie. He is with his own billionaire class, and day after day is fighting for legislation which hurts the working people of this country and benefits the people on top.
And yet,
I think people all over this country understand the truth of what I'm saying.
But they're being told something very different. Stock market all-time high. Companies throwing cash at their employees because they're so excited about the tax cut that will benefit all American families. Cutting regulation has brought manufacturing back. Cutting regulations has done more to grow commerce and the GNP in this country than ever thought imaginable in the last quarter of the Obama administration.
Well,
they say those are their facts. How do you respond?
Well, here's how I respond. The truth is that the tax proposal signed by the president will give 83% of the benefits to the top 1% at the end of 10 years at a time of massive income and wealth inequality. And what I say is that after the horrendous stock market crash as a result of the greed, after the Wall Street crash of 2008, 2009, which devastated this country, what we saw is Obama beginning to put together an economy which grew stronger and stronger, and is something that Trump has benefited from. So our job, though, is to recognize that while the very rich are doing phenomenally well, the middle class of this country continues to struggle. Millions of people today are working longer hours for low wages, et cetera, et cetera. Our job is to pay attention to working families, not just the billionaires. And by the way, Chris, that gets us to the budget debate that is going on right now. And I hope we can discuss that.
We're going to discuss it. Let's do it right now. But here's the context for it. You may not like this, but this is the way I see it. So let's discuss it. For all the ugly words that comes out of him and the beating that he gets from the media and with due criticism, he is cleaning the Democrats and yours, by extension, he's cleaning your clock on the policy matters. He got the mandate withdrawn. He got the tax cut. You had high ground coming out of that because he did it along straight partisan lines, dividing this country by party and socioeconomics. But now you're about to give him back that high ground. You're going to do a deal on DACA. He's going to get that wall. That's my guess. And he's going to be able to say, I got the wall and I'm the great unifier. Look at all these Democrats here with my bill of love. And you will then be 0 for 2 on the two biggest moves that he's done since he's been in office.
All right, Chris. Let's take one, and then we'll go to two. It is only media absurdities that looks at something like the tax bill and say, "Oh, it is a victory for Trump." I understand that he won, but what the American people will quickly understand is that when you run up a $1.4 trillion deficit over 10 years, and the vast majority of the benefits go to the top 1%, the American people understand that is not a victory for them. It may be a political victory for Trump and his billionaire friends, not for ordinary Americans.
Senator,
second of all, where we are... Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We'll go one by one. We'll both do one at a time. Look, you say a 10-year window. The cycle is 10 minutes now. This is about messaging. He got out in front of this message. The media corrects the facts. I do it all day. I've lost hairline doing it, Senator. It doesn't matter. He's won the narrative of a big tax cut that's going to help everybody. Companies are giving bonuses. The Democrats did nothing to help the middle class the way you guys promised you would. I know you don't have the numbers, but the reality is you got to find ways to use leverage.
No, I
you lost
don't agree.
on that
Trump,
bill.
No, well, of course, we lost the vote, Chris. But if you look at the polling done in this country, the vast majority of the American people understand there's something absurd when we increase the indebtedness that our children and grandchildren are going to have to face in order to give the overwhelming percentage of benefits to the top 1%, in fact, to the top 1/10 of 1%. A political victory for Trump and his friends, yes. The American people, though, have not been supportive of that legislation. Furthermore, take it back a few months previously. Look at the health care bill that Trump tried to get through. You tell me how many Americans think it was a great idea to try to throw 32 million of our fellow Americans off of health insurance, one of the least popular pieces of legislation ever brought up to the American people. Now, where we are today, this is where we are today.
And he got the mandate in the tax bill, which took a huge bite out of the ACA. It's going to destabilize markets. It's going to pop premiums. And he's going to be able to blame that
Chris,
on you guys.
Chris, you don't have to argue with me about how bad the bill is. I helped lead the fight against it. All that I'm telling you is I think you're wrong. Of course we didn't stop it. We had 48 votes. They had 52 votes. You know, that is the arithmetic. They control the House. They control the White House. We did stop the disastrous health care proposal. Where we are today, this is where we are today. In a year in which he tried to throw millions off of health insurance, give huge tax breaks to billionaires, and net neutrality, ignore the reality of climate change, in fact, make us more dependent on fossil fuels. Now where we are is at a moment when the Republicans are trying to end the parity agreement between defense and non-defense spending that has existed since 2011. Here is the story. I know it's not a sexy issue, but it is very important.
No, look, I brought you on to talk about what matters. If I wanted sexy, Bernie, I would have gone with somebody else. Maybe, maybe not. So please, make the case.
I got to tell, one second, Chris. I take that as a personal affront.
Really? Keep going, Senator, please.
Just kidding. All right, so here is the story. The story is that for the last 4 budgets, when we raised defense spending by $1, we raised spending for the middle class and working class of this country by $1, equal for both sides.
Right.
What Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, now wants to do is to move toward an incredibly large increase in military spending. Not quite clear. Could be between $100 and $150 billion over the next 2 years. Largest increase in modern American history.
Right.
But what he also wants to do is say, we are not going to pay attention and have parity for the needs of working families. They have not even reauthorized the Children's Health Insurance Program.
So what
They
can you
have
do
not
about it?
reauthorized
They haven't reauthorized CHIP. They're going to do away with parity. What are you going to do about it?
We're going to fight like hell. This time, you see, this time it is not a vote of 52 to
That's
48.
right.
This time they need 60 votes.
That's right.
And I am going to do everything that I can to make sure that before we sign off on agreements, the needs of the working class and middle class of this country are protected. It's
Would
not
you
just
shut down
CHIP.
the government?
It's not just their burden is on them. They control the White House, the Senate,
That hurts
and the
people too,
House. If
Senator.
the government is shut, if the government is going to be shut down, which I certainly do not want to see, it's on their shoulders.
Okay.
But this is what I will tell you: I will not support a huge increase in military spending and not pay attention to the Social Security Administration, which is grossly underfunded and unable to perform what it has to do for the elderly or for the disabled.